All right, let's jump right in with a story that poses one heck of a question. What if you had the technology to engineer a perfect world? And what if the price for that perfection was our own humanity?
And I mean, what if you could really force it? Like, with the flip of a switch, you could just end all war, all greed, all violence, forever. Would you do it? That single question, that's at the absolute heart of the story we're getting into today.
So, to set the scene, our story starts after this massive global event they call the Second Advent. The world before? Well, it was pretty much our world, right? You turn on the news, you hear about war, conflict, all of it. But the world after, it's quiet. Almost too quiet. Crime is gone. You've got billionaires just handing over their money to random people on the street. So the big mystery here isn't just how this happened, but what awful price was paid to get this so-called peace.
To understand how the world got fixed, we've got to rewind a bit. We need to meet the people who built this new reality. And no, we're not talking about politicians or world leaders. We're talking about a small group of outcasts who looked at the world and basically said, this is broken, we can do better.
So who are these guys? Well, at the very center of it all is Drago. He's the mastermind, the visionary. Then you have his partner, Mirko, who's all passion and cynicism. Diaceto is their technical wizard. And the rest of their crew? A bunch of punks and dropouts all hanging out at this dive bar. And they're all united by this one powerful idea. The world is garbage, and it's time someone burned it to the ground.
And let's be super clear here. This wasn't some noble quest to save humanity. Oh no, this was personal. This was payback. It was revenge on a system that they felt had chewed them up and spit them out. Just like Mirko says here, this was their big shot. The losers were finally about to settle the score.
And how were they going to do it? With this. This was their weapon, a deceptively simple, terrifyingly powerful little device they nicknamed the Devil.
Think of this little box as a master key to the human psyche. Drago had figured out how to map the entire spectrum of our emotions, everything from pure joy to absolute rage, and tie each one to a specific frequency. With just the turn of a dial, he could literally make millions of people feel anything he wanted them to.
Now, this kind of power didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It all started with this obscure, forgotten scientific paper from way back in 1905. Drago stumbles upon it, builds a prototype, and, get this, he secretly tests it for months on his own unsuspecting friends at their hangout. He tweaked it, perfected it, and even created an antidote so that he and his inner circle would be completely immune to its effects. Okay, so the weapon is built, it's perfected, it's been secretly tested. Now it's time to scale up. They're ready to go from controlling a few people in a bar to hijacking the consciousness of the entire human race.
The plan was as audacious as it gets, and it happened in two main stages. Step 1, the First Advent. This was the trial run. At one of their own concerts, they'd use the device to turn the entire audience into what they called the swarm, basically a hive mind they could command. Once they proved that worked, it was on to Step 2, the Second Advent, the main event, a full-on hijack of a global television broadcast, beaming their signal to billions of people all at once.
So what message did they pump into the brains of billions of people? It wasn't some complex philosophy. Nope. It was 4 simple, clean-cut rules, basically new commandments engineered to just delete greed, religion, hypocrisy, and sadness from the human equation. Forever! And in one single, stunning moment, it actually worked. The broadcast was a success. War, crime, greed, it all just seemed to evaporate overnight, replaced by this wave of forced altruism and eerie happiness. But this is where the cracks in their perfect world start to show. Because, a utopia that's built on mind control isn't really a paradise, is it? It's a cage, a very pretty cage with a horrifyingly high price tag. Sure, on the surface, everything looked amazing. War was over, people were sharing. But what was bubbling up underneath was a total nightmare. This new morality led to something they called the cleanup, where anyone who couldn't adapt just removed themselves. Fanatical cults started popping up, worshiping these unseen saviors. And of course, the biggest cost of all, the complete and total loss of free will. And that cleanup?
I mean, just look at this number. It was brutally efficient. The global suicide rate jumped by an estimated 450%. And why? Because that new commandment, do to yourself what you do to others, it had a terrible side effect. It basically forced anyone with a dark past to self-destruct.
And you know what's really wild? Even the architects of this new world were absolutely horrified by what they'd done. Mirko, the same guy who dreamed of this revolution, looked around at all the empty smiles and the mass death, and all he could say was, "I thought it would be more fun to be a god."
And then they hit a bug in the system, a fatal flaw. It turns out Drago's signal was designed for a fractured, individualistic world, but when it hit a place with a strong, unified culture, like Tripoli, it didn't work. The people there didn't see it as salvation, they saw it as an attack. And the entire city just erupted in violence.
So now his perfect world is cracking at the seams. You've got mass suicides, you've got violent resistance, you've got the horror in his own friend's eyes. Drago, the self-made god, finally sees his creation for what it is, a failure. And he decides there's only one thing left to do. One last global broadcast to end it all.
In his final speech to the entire world, Drago delivered this new, terrifying philosophy. He claimed that for life to have any meaning at all, it requires death. He wasn't trying to be a savior anymore. He was justifying annihilation.
And then it all plays out, minute by horrific minute. He finishes his speech. He lifts a microphone he'd secretly modified, and then a blinding flash, a deafening pop. He literally self-destructs live on stage in front of everyone. His followers, seeing their god just explode, they surge forward in this wave of collective horror. The stage collapses, and a completely new and terrifying kind of chaos is born.
The god is dead, and his fragile, pacified world, the one held together only by that broadcast signal, it just shatters into a million pieces. And what's left behind isn't the old chaos. It's something much, much worse. It's a planet that's been stripped of all its systems, left completely leaderless in a terrifying power vacuum.
So in the end, what did they really accomplish? They took a world that was messy, a world struggling with the chaos of human free will, and they replaced it with the absolute, terrifying chaos of a fallen god. They didn't fix the world, they just left it more broken than they ever found it.
Which brings us right back to that first question, but with a much darker twist. It's no longer just about whether you'd flip a switch. The real question is this: if you had that power, what would you be willing to destroy to create your perfect world? And could you live with the person you'd have to become to do it? Thanks for watching.